My name is Charlie, and I've been volunteering at the Agora Math Circle for 3 years, after being a student for 1 year. I'm here to tell you a little bit about myself and to give you some advice about high school academics and life. When I started high school, I thought that getting into college meant that I had to do a million different extracurriculars, do well in school, and ace standardized tests. I signed up for tons of clubs and honor societies, way too many to be deeply involved in all of them. What I realized that changed the way I approached extracurriculars was that colleges want to see a lot of involvement, not a lot of activities. Yes, they want to see good academics, high test scores, and a long resume, but they would much prefer to see a few very long entries on your resume than many short ones. At first, I thought that was just something adults told kids to stop them from overworking themselves, until I discovered that being deeply involved in a few activities is much more work than being tangentially involved in many. And colleges know that, which is why most schools give you space to elaborate on one extra meaningful activity, and MIT only even lets you list 4. Let me give you a few examples. I only did 4 big activities in high school. I only listed 6 things on my Common Application. Those 4, plus 1 summer activity, and yes, 1 honors society. Aside from working at the Agora Math Circle, I was on my school's rocketry team, on the speech and debate team, and a writer from the school newspaper. That might not sound like a lot, but within each activity were several different kinds of involvement. The time commitment for each of my in-school activities was over 5 hours a week, and almost always more than that. The time commitment for the Agora Math Circle was a bit lower than that during the school year, but I spent lots of time during the summer writing curriculum. The point is, I poured a lot of time into these activities. In rocketry, I placed highly in national competitions, and was accepted into a competition called NASA's Student Lunch, which is usually only for college teams. But I didn't just do competitions. I also organized outreach activities like local science nights, Apollo night, airshow booths, and breakout rooms at statewide conferences. The community service, outreach, and public speaking that I did with my rocketry team gave the activity a whole new dimension. And as one of the 2 captains of the rocketry team, it also helped me demonstrate leadership ability. Similarly, I did more than just write for the school newspaper. While I did publish many standard pieces, I also incorporated my interest in STEM into my writing and wrote features on social justice issues. I applied to both MIT and Caltech Early Action, and both schools deferred me. In my update forms, they asked me what projects I had completed since I first applied, and I spent most of my space talking about a statistics project I did for journalism, where I collected data on my school and published a story centered on that data. I was later accepted to both schools. The Agora Math Circle is a great activity if you want to do something that combines many different areas and be extensively involved in an activity. When I wrote about the Agora Math Circle, I didn't just write about math. I wrote about teaching, writing curriculum, editing videos, hosting events, coordinating volunteers, public speaking, serving my community, and leadership. If you're volunteering here, you're already doing more than 90% of people who sign up to clubs and do nothing but attend meetings. It's impossible to just attend the Agora Math Circle, since volunteers are actively engaged in teaching and grading. Having these activities that were so deep and nuanced really gave me things to write about when schools asked me to talk about a single meaningful extracurricular activity. If all you do for an extracurricular is go to a couple of events each year and a meeting every week, it's going to be hard to make these essays meet the word count. If you have involved yourself in activities that are very extensive, you'll have trouble fitting everything in, which in my opinion is a much better problem to have. So, to those of you who are rising freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, work to cultivate a few nuanced and extensive extracurriculars, preferably ones that blend multiple interests, like science and community service, or math and writing. Before I move on, I want to take a brief look at summers. I'm all for recharging and recovering from school during the summer, but colleges want to know what you did over the summers before junior and senior year, so you don't want to do nothing. Here's what I recommend. Either 1, do something full-time like research or a job, or 2, spend 15 hours a week on projects and other work. You don't need to be putting in 40-hour weeks like you do during the school year. I did option 2 before my junior year. I worked part-time as a debate instructor, and I spent about 10 hours each week writing curriculum for the Agora Math Circle. I did option 1 before my senior year. I did research full-time for half the summer. Neither of these summers was stressful. In the first summer, I only worked about 20 hours per week or less, giving me plenty of time to prepare myself for the next school year and relax. In the second summer, I still had half my summer entirely free. When colleges ask about your summer, don't tell them about the time you spent writing college essays or studying for the SAT or ACT. That doesn't make you look good. Make sure that if you're doing those things, you're also doing the things that I already talked about. You can and should briefly mention any academic summer work you completed or summer school, but don't make that the focus of your description of your summer. Make sure you also do the things that I already talked about. Definitely mention anything you did over the summer for extracurricular activities. Those count as projects. Also, if you went on a long vacation or went to see family over one summer like I did before junior year, mention that. Colleges want students who care about their lives and the people around them. So putting in a line or two about having fun with family and friends is a great way to communicate that you'll be a fun addition to the campus community. Rising seniors. Most of what you can put on your application, aside from what you do this summer, is already over. Many people think that means they can't do anything else for their application, but they're wrong. Framing your high school experience in your application is the single most important step in the entire process. I'm going to share my process of framing my application, which might not work for everyone, but it definitely worked for me. It's time consuming because it isn't one size fits all, meaning it has to be done over for each individual school. So I only went through this process for the 6 schools that I cared the most about: Stanford, MIT, Caltech, the Biomedical Engineering Program at Johns Hopkins, the School of Computer Science at Carnegie Mellon, and the M&T Engineering plus Wharton program at Penn. I got into all of those 6. Your application is a story, so write it like one. You pick the story you convey. Before you start each application, write your story in 1 sentence. The story should match the school and the program you're applying to. The story I sent to MIT was not the same story I sent to Stanford because they're different schools looking for different things. This means that you'll have to do a lot of research to figure out what kinds of students the school you want to go to is looking for. In addition to that story, list 6 traits you'd like to convey. The first 2 traits are pertinent to your story. If your story is STEM-loving student learns to hone their humanities skills, then 2 really important traits are loves STEM and has skills in the humanities. The next 2 traits should be traits you think the school is looking for. Again, this requires research because Yale and Caltech aren't looking for the same thing. The final 2 traits should be traits that you think set you apart from the applicant pool. What kind of people apply to MIT? How are you different from those people? Be careful though, because the most important part about choosing these traits is that they're true. The goal isn't to pretend you're someone different for every school you apply to. You're one person with many different sides. The goal is to show each school the side of yourself that's most pertinent to them. Each trait you pick should be true and important to you. They should be traits you are genuinely proud of. The same goes for the story you choose. It should be something that is 100% true and something you deeply resonate with. If you don't pick true and important stories and traits, not only will the whole application be an uphill battle, but even if you get in, you will have gotten in dishonestly. Once you have your stories and traits, your essays are written much more easily. Every single essay that you write should demonstrate at least 1 trait or your story. At the end, make sure each trait and your story are represented. This makes writing a personal statement rather difficult, since you have to use the same one for every school, so you'll need to plan ahead. With all of that said, the things everyone should focus on in high school are 1. Having a positive mindset towards school and learning, 2. Maturing as a person, 3. Learning how to work hard, and 4. Figuring out what matters to you. If you focus on those 4 things, everything else I've talked about shouldn't be so hard. If you learn to love school, studying won't be so bad. If you figure out what you care about, getting involved in extracurriculars feels natural. And if you genuinely grow as a person, you'll definitely have topics for essays. What matters isn't so much what you get out of this process, it's what you put in. On that note, one great way to figure out what matters to you, to learn to work hard, and to develop a positive mindset, all while getting involved in a meaningful activity, is actually by being a student at the Agora Math Circle. Like I said, I started as a student in 9th grade, and that experience really helped solidify my interest in and passion for math, while teaching me the study skills I needed to do well in upper-level math courses. And it helped me become a volunteer afterwards. This fall, I'll be attending Stanford University. I'd like to thank the Agora Math Circle and the community of students and volunteers that it has cultivated for all of their help getting me to where I am today. Thank you, and good luck.
Don't forget to subscribe and like. If you have any questions, you can email info@agoramathcircle.org or comment below and we'll reply back. Maybe. And if you want to see practice things or anything about us, you can visit our website, which is basically the end of the email but without the info and the end. So bye!